In Mysteries of the Third Reich, Part 1, Evil Beneath the Ice. In the wake of World War II, as the smoke cleared and Europe began to rebuild, the victorious Allied powers launched multiple expeditions to Antarctica. Publicly, these missions were labeled scientific. But was exploration the true objective? Or were they chasing a darker secret, an ancient evil lurking beneath the frozen expanse? Captain Hauke and his Icelandic crew were used to the monotonous glare of Antarctic daylight. But perpetual sunlight had its toll. Although it helped them track the elusive whales they sought, the constant brightness left them groggy and sleepless. Zombies walking the deck of the Juliana. One December morning, the lookouts were unusually slow to respond. A dark silhouette loomed just off their starboard side. Hauke had been below, poring over navigation charts, desperate to salvage what had been an unproductive voyage from Iceland. His thoughts were interrupted by frantic yelling from the upper deck. He climbed topside and joined his crew, stunned by the sight before them. A sleek, unmistakable German U-boat, its deck gun trained on their vessel. Though the war had ended 2 years earlier, here was a relic of the Kriegsmarine, very much alive. Stories had circulated of rogue submarines ignoring surrender orders, but none had been confirmed. This unexpected encounter now lent those rumors terrifying credibility. German sailors in gray-green uniforms scrambled across the U-boat's deck. Soon, 2 inflatable boats approached the whaling vessel. With no weapons and no allies nearby, Hauke gave the only order he could. Do not resist. As the Germans boarded, one man, clearly their captain, strode confidently toward Hauke. Polite yet commanding, he requested to purchase half of the Juliana's remaining supplies. Though framed as a request, the unspoken threat in the captain's tone was clear. Refusal was not an option. Each of the German sailors was visibly armed. Reluctantly, Hauke agreed. To his surprise, he was handed a thick roll of U.S. currency, with enough for each crewman to receive a generous bonus. Before departing, the German captain asked to see one of Hauke's maps. He marked a nearby location, claiming a large group of humpback whales had recently been spotted there. With a courteous salute, he vanished back over the side. The Juliana's crew watched in stunned silence as the U-boat disappeared into the horizon, never to be seen again. On December 2nd, 1946, a large U.S. naval task force departed Norfolk, Virginia. Codenamed Operation High Jump, it comprised 13 ships, including the aircraft carrier USS Philippine Sea and the destroyers USS Henderson and USS Brownson. Though officially described as a scientific and training mission, the true purpose remained unclear. Leading the expedition was Rear Admiral Richard E. Byrd Jr., a decorated explorer who had previously led several Arctic and Antarctic operations. Upon arrival deep within the Antarctic Circle, the fleet began intensive aerial reconnaissance and mapping. Yet only weeks into the mission, they were ordered to withdraw, citing severe weather conditions. The sudden retreat raised eyebrows. Soon after, South American newspapers began reporting that the fleet had been attacked by unidentified flying objects. According to the Chilean press, the Americans had suffered heavy losses, prompting a hasty evacuation. These claims might have been dismissed until Admiral Byrd, in a post-expedition interview, made cryptic warnings that he suggested the U.S. must prepare for future attacks, potentially from the polar south, and that geography alone would no longer protect the homeland. His comments sent shockwaves through the intelligence community. A follow-up expedition, Operation Windmill, was quickly launched and concluded in early 1948. After that, U.S. interest in Antarctica mysteriously waned, until, over a decade later, when 3 nuclear devices were detonated in the region under the guise of high-altitude atmospheric testing. Had interest in Antarctica truly faded? Or had something been discovered, something dangerous enough to warrant a nuclear response? The story might have faded into obscurity were it not for a Soviet-era document, leaked in 1991. Allegedly compiled from KGB interviews with American sailors who took part in Operation High Jump, the report painted a far more disturbing picture. According to this classified account, the American fleet came under direct attack. By mid-February 1947, the USS Brownson reported fast-moving lights tracking their formation. At first distant, the lights soon drew closer. Radar screens confirmed the presence of airborne craft. 5 saucer-shaped objects began flying aggressively over the fleet, darting between the ships at terrifying speeds. Deeming their actions hostile, the Brownson's captain ordered anti-aircraft fire. The destroyer opened up with its 40mm cannons. What followed was chaos. Witnesses described the attackers as metallic discs, maneuvering impossibly fast. The crafts retaliated with blinding beams of heat and light. American fighters attempting to launch were obliterated mid-air, reduced to ashes by energy weapons unknown to modern science. Though American fire was largely ineffective, one lucky strike from the submarine USS Senate reportedly hit one of the discs. It veered off erratically before crashing into the sea and exploding. Moments later, an even greater blast rocked the fleet. The destroyer USS Maddox had taken a direct hit. Flames reached her munitions stores, and the ship erupted in a cataclysmic explosion. Everyone aboard was killed. The Americans began a full retreat, harried for days by these unknown aerial assailants. The KGB report concluded that even the second U.S. expedition failed to overcome the hostile force. Ultimately, America may have resorted to nuclear weapons. In a desperate final act, conspiracy theorists were quick to seize on the Soviet report. For some, it proved that aliens resided in Antarctica. For others, it suggested remnants of the Nazi regime had survived, hidden beneath the ice. A third camp theorized a combination of both: fugitive Nazis wielding alien technology to establish a secret Fourth Reich in the polar depths. However, the report contained glaring factual errors. For example, it mentioned the USS Casablanca, which had not participated in the expedition and was docked in Norfolk at the time. The USS Maddox, allegedly destroyed, had no record of Antarctic deployment. 2 destroyers of that name existed, one lost in 1944 and another that served in Vietnam. Neither was present in Antarctica. Additionally, official logs from Operation High Jump recorded only 4 fatalities. 3 men perished in a weather-related crash, and 1 sailor died in a loading accident. No mass casualties. No aerial dogfights. If the Soviet account was a fabrication, why create such an elaborate lie? One theory is disinformation, designed to expose moles or mislead enemies. Another possibility is that the report contained fragments of truth, carefully distorted to hide a deeper reality under the guise of Cold War paranoia. Still, the early termination of the expedition and Admiral Byrd's unusual warnings suggest something unexpected occurred, something not fully explained by weather alone. The roots of the mystery may stretch back to before the war. Hitler had a documented ambition to establish a Nazi presence in remote parts of the globe, including Antarctica. In 1938, the German ship MS Schwabenland left Hamburg, bound for the icy south. On board were 2 seaplanes fitted with skis for landing on ice. The mission, led by famed explorer Alfred Richer, arrived at the Queen Maud Land coast, claimed by Norway, and promptly renamed it Neuschwabenland. They established a base, conducted extensive aerial surveys, and returned to Germany 6 months later, already planning a second expedition. That follow-up never happened, likely derailed by the outbreak of war. But their presence was real. Even in modern times, traces of Nazi activity have been found in polar regions. In 2014, Russian explorers uncovered a hidden World War II-era German weather station on Alexandra Land, near the Arctic Circle. Inside were rusted equipment, Nazi flags, and documents frozen in time. If such a base could remain hidden for decades, who's to say others don't exist in Antarctica, beneath hundreds of meters of untouched ice? Captain Halka's 1947 encounter with the rogue U-boat is often dismissed as fiction. But with over 20 German submarines still missing from World War II, their fate unconfirmed, it remains within the realm of possibility. Germany launched over 1,000 U-boats during the war. Many were sunk. Some vanished. Could one have slipped away to a secret base? We also know German engineers were developing aircraft far ahead of their time. Designs like the Honebu, a disc-shaped flying craft, allegedly achieved limited test flights before the war's end. Though unproven, these prototypes match descriptions of the flying saucers later seen over Antarctica. Critics say such craft never existed or never flew. But Nazi scientists did help develop the first ballistic missiles, early stealth aircraft, and other cutting-edge technology. With more time, it's not far-fetched to imagine them achieving even greater breakthroughs. Once we strip away the most far-fetched theories, ancient aliens, Nazi UFOs, the mystery remains. Something happened during Operation High Jump, something that frightened the most powerful navy in the world enough to abort the mission early, return home, and issue vague warnings about threats from the polar south. Something that may have required the use of nuclear weapons to neutralize, whether it was advanced Nazi technology, extraterrestrial interference, or a secret too dangerous to reveal. The truth remains buried under layers of secrecy, and I see it. Human exploration continues, and the Antarctic yields its frozen secrets. We may one day uncover the full story.